Yes.
8.
Oh my goodness, I never saw that before. All right.
You want one?
Yes. That's wonderful. Technology has finally reached the movies after 40 years of paralysis. Yes. When you work with stars, you have to make love to them. You know, when you work with actors, you have to make love. It's the business of the director, is to be a kind of, carry on a continual courtship with the people he sticks in front of the lens. And when you deal with stars, you know, real stars, you have to really make love, you know. The actual job of the director in 99% of all movies is minimal. It's the only really easy job around. I can tell you things I don't like in all my movies, and if that makes it flawed, then it's flawed, and I don't think I ever made a masterpiece. I had one director in England who was wonderful. About halfway through every take, he'd say, "Cut. Cut." There'd be a long silence, and I'd look at him, you know. I'd say, "How would you like me to do it?" Just do it again." So we'd do it again, and then there'd be this, "Cut." We went through the whole picture like that, and I never knew what was giving him this pain.
You said that when you arrived in Hollywood, you had the confidence of ignorance.
Yes.
Can you tell me what that meant?
Well, it was pretty much like my beginnings in the theater. I had the confidence of ignorance, not knowing anything about it. There was no basis for fear. In other words, if you don't know that if you're walking along the edge of a cliff and you don't know it's the edge of a cliff, you have perfect confidence, you know. And I didn't discover the cliff in the theater or in films until after I'd been in it for a while.
What happens then when ignorance turns into experience?
Then you have to be very careful not to listen to anybody, you know, because when you have to remember your old ignorance and ask for the impossible with the same cheerfulness that you did when you didn't know what you were talking about. I was obsessed in my hot youth with the idea that I would not be a star. I would only incidentally play great roles. Now, there's no such thing as incidentally playing great roles, because you're not going to get them offered to you or anything. And I was in a position to promote myself as a star, and I should have. I should have gone back to New York and played Hamlet, and as long as it was going, I didn't. I had this idea that I wanted to be known as a director, and that was it. Anybody who goes to Hollywood can see right away what the setup is. In my early days, it was much more fun. It was much more fun to outwit the dinosaurs than it is to outwit the college graduates from the conglomerates, you know. But Hollywood is Hollywood. There's nothing you can say about it that isn't true, good or bad. And if you get into it, you have no right to be bitter. You're the one who sat down and joined the game, you know.
Is it a clash of, really a clash of temperaments between you and the system? I mean, there have been fine films made within the Hollywood system.
Yes, indeed. The people who have done well in the system are the people whose instincts, whose desire, who want to make the kind of movie which producers want to produce. Not what the public wants, but producers want to produce. People who don't succeed, the people who've had long, bad times, like Renoir, for example, is, I think, the best director ever, are people who didn't want to make the kind of pictures that producers want to make. Producers didn't want to make a Renoir picture even if it was a success. People don't realize that nobody in movies is interested in money. Everybody thinks Hollywood is interested in money because they talk about money all the time. Well, they talk about sex all the time, and they don't do much of that. They're really interested it's all an ego trip. They're interested in having produced this picture in power, in status, all sorts of things. Money is only the counters in the game. Nobody's really interested in money, or they wouldn't be nobody would go into movies if they were really interested in money. Because if you're interested in money, you'd go into a business in which you make bigger sums easier. So that's the trouble with Hollywood, isn't it its money aspect? And as you speak of a clash of temperaments, not at all. It's the pictures I like to make are not the pictures Hollywood producers, and particularly modern Hollywood producers, want to make.
Do you actually think the director is overrated?
Oh yes, oh yes. I think I think there are the exceptions, are the exceptional directors, of which there are very few up to now. But the actual job of the director in 99% of all movies is minimal. It's the only really easy job around. It really is, you know. And if you can fool the people for years if you're a good producer. The director who is by nature a good producer can make a great name for himself and live to a great age covered with glory and honors and never be found out. Because a movie can be made by the actors or by the cutter or by the author. The best movies are made by the director. I would have sold my soul to play The Godfather, for instance. You know. But I never get those parts offered to me at all.
Why have you accepted so many parts, no matter how well you may have done them in the end, that were basically from bad scripts?
To live. I have to live in the, you know, if you're going to try to finance movies and live, you have to earn your money somehow. And I've done, most of my movies have been movies I didn't want to make. I've never done a movie that I disapproved of morally. The last star part that I was offered was Caligula, and I refused it on moral grounds. And yet there I would have been playing the leading part in an $8 million picture. And it would have been nice to do that, but I didn't even have a moment's doubt about not doing it. And the same thing would be for political reasons or anything like that. I've turned down a lot of things for those kind of reasons. But no great parts. I haven't had any great parts offered me, only a few good ones in all these years. They hire me when they have a really bad movie and they want a cameo that'll give it a little class, you know. So every time I do one of those things, I chip off something more from me as an actor. It's a kind of, you know, you're in liquidation when you do that. And that's why I hope to avoid it. Now that it looks as though I have a chance to direct a couple of more movies. And I've got a couple of good parts I've written for myself. It's the only way I know how to get them.
Nobody else will.
Yes. So I played all the great parts in the theater by running. You know, there's an old Yiddish saying in the Yiddish theater that the star is the man who owns the store, you know? So some of my stores have been rather small establishments, but I was the star because I owned it.
Have you also had bits chipped off you from doing commercials?
No, I don't think so at all. That's an English attitude. Larry does commercials in America, but not in England. I know there have been a lot of, every time they write about me now in a performance in an English paper, they talk about me, you know, my sherry voice or something. I think that's nonsensical. You know, painters have always made posters. Why the hell shouldn't an actor sell a product that he thinks is a decent product and not a when you aren't cheating the public? I think it's perfectly legitimate use of what you have to sell. I think it's very harmful to see movies for movie makers. because you either imitate them or worry about not imitating them. And you should do movies innocently, the way Adam named the animals on the first day in the garden. And I lost my innocence. Every time I see a picture, I lose something. I don't gain. I never understand what directors mean when they compliment me, young directors, and say they've learned from my pictures. Because I don't believe in learning from other people's pictures. I think I made essentially a mistake in staying in movies, but it's the mistake I can't regret, because it's like saying I shouldn't have stayed married to that woman, but I did because I love her. I would have been more successful if I hadn't been married to her, you know. I would have been more successful if I'd left movies immediately. Stayed in the theater, gone into politics, written anything. I've wasted the greater part of my life looking for money and trying to get along, trying to make my work from this terribly expensive paint box, which is a movie. And I've spent too much energy on things that have nothing to do with making a movie. It's about 2% movie making and 98% hustling. It's no way to spend a life.
Do you feel that's going to go on?
Oh, I'm going to go on being faithful to my girl. I love her. I fell so much in love with making movies that the theater lost everything for me, you know. I'm just in love with making movies.